The wealthy don't think about money the way most ordinary people do. It isn't simply intelligence, luck, or some secret strategy passed down behind closed doors. It's something far quieter than that, something almost invisible to the people around them every day. It's temperament, the quiet way they hold money inside their mind before they ever spend it. By the end of this, you'll clearly see the real gap between rich thinking and broke thinking, and you'll understand why that gap has almost nothing to do with how much someone earns. Most people believe wealth is built through bigger paychecks, faster wins, smarter moves. But the wealthy quietly know something different. They know money is shaped by how you think about it. Two people can earn the same amount and end up in entirely different lives 10 years later. The difference isn't income. The difference is the temperament behind every small decision they made. Broke thinking lives inside the next 30 days. Rich thinking lives inside the next 30 years. That single shift changes how a person spends, saves, waits, and reacts to almost everything. Picture someone refreshing their bank app 3 times a day, waiting for relief that never comes. Now picture someone checking it once a month, calm, because the plan was already made. Same money, sometimes, completely different nervous system, completely different future quietly forming behind them. Broke thinking treats money like weather. It feels random, emotional, something happening to you without warning. Rich thinking treats money like a garden. Slow, intentional, shaped by what you plant and protect. That mindset shift sounds small, but it rewrites every financial choice a person ever makes. The wealthy think in seasons. The struggling think in storms. That's the first hidden difference. When a market drops, broke thinking panics and sells everything to feel safe again. Rich thinking sits still, knowing panic has never once been a profitable long-term strategy. The calm isn't because they have more. The calm is because they think in longer timelines. A scary week means nothing when your mind is measuring in decades, not in moments. Broke thinking asks, how much can I get right now before something goes wrong again? Rich thinking asks, what version of me, 10 years from now, will thank me for this? Those two questions create two entirely different humans, even if they start in the same place. One chases relief, the other builds a future. And relief, repeated forever, quietly becomes a trap. Imagine someone getting an unexpected bonus at work, a few $1,000s landing all at once. Broke thinking sees it as permission to upgrade, celebrate, finally feel like they've arrived. Rich thinking sees it as a seed, a small thing that could grow into something much larger. Same bonus, two completely different futures. The difference was never the money itself. The wealthy aren't allergic to enjoyment. They simply don't confuse spending with feeling successful. Broke thinking buys things to feel rich. Rich thinking buys assets and lets them do the work. That's why someone earning modestly can quietly outbuild someone earning 3 times more. Temperament beats income, slowly, invisibly, almost unfairly, over a long enough timeline. Here's another quiet difference. Broke thinking fears losing money more than it values keeping it. Rich thinking respects loss but doesn't worship it. It treats risk as information, not punishment. That's why the wealthy stay in the game during seasons when others quietly walk away. Staying in the game, decade after decade, is one of the most underrated skills in wealth. Most people don't lose because of bad decisions. They lose because they stop showing up. They get tired, get scared, get impatient, and the long, boring road quietly continues without them. Broke thinking wants the story to end. Rich thinking knows the story's the point. There's no finish line where money suddenly becomes easy. There's only the temperament you carry forward. Notice how the wealthy speak about money. Calm, curious, almost detached, like they're studying a slow river. Broke thinking speaks about money with urgency, frustration, or shame. 3 emotions that cloud every decision. Money responds to clarity, not emotion. The clearer you're thinking, the better your choices tend to become. That's why the first work isn't financial. The first work is emotional. The temperament comes first. Pause for a moment. Think about your own relationship with money over the last year. as it felt mostly urgent and reactive or mostly calm and intentional underneath the surface. There's no judgment in the answer. Most of us were never taught a calmer way to think. If something here is landing, share one line in the comments about how you currently think about money. Your honesty might be exactly what another viewer needs to read tonight. We learn faster together. Now let's keep going because the next layer is where most people quietly get stuck. Broke thinking believes more income will fix everything. Rich thinking knows habits scale, not just salaries. A raise without a temperament shift usually means bigger bills, not a bigger life underneath. That's why lottery winners often lose it all, and quiet savers often end up surprisingly wealthy. The number changed. The mind didn't. And the mind always wins, eventually, in both directions. Rich thinking treats every dollar as a tiny employee with a job to do for the future. Broke thinking treats every dollar as a guest passing through, briefly visiting before leaving forever. When dollars feel like employees, you protect them. When they feel like guests, you wave goodbye. That single reframe can change someone's entire financial life without changing their income at all. The wealthy also think in systems, not in moments. Broke thinking lives one decision at a time. A system is a quiet rule you set once, so your future self doesn't have to negotiate every day. Automatic saving, spending limits, waiting period before big purchases, small structures with enormous compounding power. Broke thinking relies on willpower. Rich thinking removes the need for willpower wherever it possibly can. Because willpower is unreliable. It runs out by evening. It collapses under stress. It cannot build decades. Systems don't get tired. Habits don't have bad days. That's why temperament is built on structure, not effort. Another hidden difference. Broke thinking compares constantly. Rich thinking competes mostly with its past self. Comparison is a thief, especially online, where everyone's highlight reel becomes your private measuring stick. The wealthy quietly opt out of that race. They build at their own pace, in their own lane. Not because they're better, because they've learned that comparison burns the patience wealth actually requires. Broke thinking chases shortcuts. Rich thinking respects time as the most powerful financial force ever discovered. There's a reason the calm, patient compounding of decades beats almost every flashy strategy ever marketed. Time rewards the people willing to be boring, and being boring financially is shockingly underrated. The wealthy are often the most boring people in the room when it comes to money. That's the secret. Think of wealth like planting a tree. You can't yank it taller. You can only protect the soil. Broke thinking keeps digging up the roots to check if it's growing. Rich thinking simply waters and waits. Patience isn't passive. Patience is an active refusal to interrupt something that's quietly working for you. That refusal, repeated for years, is one of the most powerful financial behaviors a human can build. Broke thinking also fears boredom. It wants excitement, action, a feeling of doing something important right now. Rich thinking has made peace with boredom. It knows boring decisions usually create the most exciting outcomes later. If your money strategy feels thrilling, it's probably risky. If it feels calm and almost dull, you may be onto something. Excitement is for hobbies. Wealth is built in the quiet, repeatable, slightly unglamorous corners of your life. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Broke thinking blames the outside world for most of its financial pain. Rich thinking takes quiet responsibility, even for things that weren't entirely fair, because responsibility is where power lives. This isn't about denying real hardship. Hardship is real, and some doors are heavier than others to open. But blame, even when justified, doesn't build anything. It only keeps the mind locked in a past it can't change. The wealthy don't pretend life is fair. They simply refuse to let unfairness become their permanent identity. That subtle shift from victim of money to author of money is the deepest temperament change of all. Broke thinking says, when things calm down, I'll start. Rich thinking says, things rarely calm down, so I'll start now. There is no perfect moment to begin thinking differently about money. There is only the moment you choose. And choosing, even imperfectly, even quietly, even on a hard day, is what slowly rewires the entire temperament. You don't need more money to start thinking like someone with money. You only need to start thinking that way today. So, how do you actually begin? Not with a strategy, with a small, repeatable mental shift you can practice. Before any money decision this week, pause and ask one quiet question. Is this me or is this urgency? That single question interrupts the broke thinking reflex long enough for a calmer, longer term mind to step in. You won't always like the answer, but you'll slowly learn the difference between a craving and a real choice. Then try a second small practice. Once a week, sit for 5 minutes and think about your money without judgment. Not budgeting, not planning, just noticing how you feel, what you fear, what you want your future to look like. That quiet noticing is how temperament is built, not through pressure, but through honest, repeated attention. The wealthy didn't become calm by accident. They became calm by paying attention over and over for years. Remember, no one is born with rich thinking. Everyone learns it, or doesn't, depending on what they practice. If you were taught urgency, scarcity, and shame around money, that wasn't your fault, but it can be your turning point. A new temperament is available to you starting now, in this very ordinary moment, with no big announcement needed. You don't have to declare it. You don't have to fix everything tonight. You only have to begin thinking differently once, then again tomorrow, then again the day after. That's how the wealthy mind quietly forms inside an ordinary life. Wealth is rarely a dramatic event. It's 1,000 calm decisions made by a person who chose to think longer. You can be that person, not someday, starting in the very next small choice you make about money. If this gave you something to sit with, take a moment and share your biggest takeaway in the comments below. Your words might land in front of someone who needed exactly that perspective tonight, more than they realize. And if you'd like more conversations like this one, subscribe and turn on the bell so the next reflection finds you. This channel exists for the quiet builders, the slow thinkers, the people choosing temperament over noise. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're simply learning a calmer way to think about something nobody taught you. That alone puts you ahead of where you stood when this video began, and that's a beginning worth honoring. Money will always come and go in waves, but the temperament you build around it is the part that quietly lasts. So breathe deeply, slow down, think longer. The wealthy mind isn't a secret. It's just a patience most people never truly practice. Practice it anyway, even today, even quietly, even on hard days when no one around you understands why you're being so calm. Because one day the calm itself becomes the wealth, and by then, you won't need anyone to explain it to you.